Welcome to the on wax. G'day and welcome to episode 7 of Rainbows on Wax. I'm Alex.
And I'm Steve.
We're here to talk about how to be a fan of music. How to, be a fan, how to get fans.
Yes.
I think it's one and the same.
Yes.
I am first and foremost, aside from, me being a producer or a songwriter or record label owner, a fan of music. First and foremost that's why we're here.
Yes, definitely.
I just don't think anyone should really be in this game if you're not seriously a fan of music. Like, why else would you want to work in music, want to be a part of it? There's a million amazing things in life that you can do. Be a gardener if you're a fan of gardening, right? Mm-hmm. Be a lawyer if you're a fan of the law, or a fan of money.
Yeah.
I think it's a big thing that we're sort of taught and told these days in life is like, follow your passion. How to be a fan is something I think that was maybe unspoken, let's say, for years. And until now, where we are in this world of passively consuming content through social media, through Spotify, through these various things, our phones that give us the stuff that they think we need or want or whatever they want to push onto us. When we were younger, and I guess we're of the generation that is the transitional out of CDs and records and into digital music. So we got to be teenagers, and when you're a teenager, I remember from personal experience, like, especially when I was younger, so maybe not even a teenager, maybe 9, 10 years old. For one, I had my mum's sort of record collection, CDs, things like that. But then you'd go to Sanity, like we had Sanity, HMV, some local record stores.
God, those were the days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There'd be like a big wall of singles.
Yeah.
And you could, we didn't have like tons of money, so mum's not going to be like, yeah, buy an album like every time you go to the shops. But if you had pocket money for the week, $5 to get you a single, and it's like a total risk.
Yeah.
To kind of be like, oh, what am I going to pick? And it's like based on the album artwork, or you might have heard it on
Rage. Channel V.
Yeah, Channel V. So you're getting sort of the top, 50 or 100. I know Rage, like the early Rage would kind of play anything. Like whatever had a music video, they were going to play, which is cool. But yeah, anyway, so then you'd go and you'd take your money and you'd go and buy the single, and hopefully you'd like it. 9 times out of 10 you would. Like, most distributed music was quite good. And if you're I was totally like just a fan of music growing up. Like, I wasn't like too much until I was a teenager. I kind of liked everything. I liked R&B, I liked pop, I liked Limp Bizkit, heavy new metal. I liked hip hop. It didn't really bother me. It was sort of like whatever I could get my hands on, I was just keen to have. I think as you start to get a little bit older and you're a teenager, you kind of want to listen to music that your friends like. You want to maybe impress them and be like, hey, I got this CD that's got swearing on it or something. I'm listening to Eminem because my mum lets me. And, you kind of like start to use it as pillars of your personality, pillars of like who you are and what defines you. And eventually, I'd say for me, it was definitely, probably 15, I would say, when it's like, all right, like I want my own music separate to mum's. And, for me, that was kind of punk, emo, heavy metal, hardcore sort of stuff. That's where I kind of like found my scene. And in that, I was, now a fan of this kind of music. And I'd say one of the biggest parts, like looking back at it, was who were like the instigators, who were the influencers, before influencers, of people that I had around me that were giving me this music, you know, especially underground music, especially alternative music. Like this wasn't just readily available in record stores. I guess at that point we could download music, which was cool, but somebody had to find it somewhere and tell somebody about it.
It was usually an older sister or brother or uncle
someone's
or
older
something.
sister, someone's older brother, an uncle. Like somebody had been traveling, you know, maybe they'd gone to America, maybe they'd gone to Europe and found one of these bands through all sorts of different ways, all weird ways. You know, it's not just as simple as like go on Spotify, type in the genre, type in release radar, whatever it is, and find stuff that's coming out. Also, the abundance of stuff that's coming out now too can be, you know, we're not going to like everything. So yeah, it was like my stepbrother at the time, you know, was showing me bands like Pennywise and NoFX, and he started listening, I guess, to emo through, I'm assuming it would have been the record labels back then. Like they used to release like mix CDs that would have like everyone who they'd signed on there, and they'd be like Taking Back Sunday and Brand New and Alexis on Fire and kind of all these other bands. And, you know, if you liked the single, you could then somehow find the album. You'd burn the CD or you'd download it, or you'd find it somewhere.
LimeWire,
yeah. Getting just tricked into downloading viruses or whatever. But, you know, you become this sort of active fan. And I'd say the start of that is like analyze, probably the wrong word. Look at like who your friends are. If you've got a friend that's been like, check out this record, check out this artist, and it's someone you've never heard of, and you go and listen to it and you love it, keep that friend around. Whatever they're doing to actively find music. And I know like, there used to be blogs. I don't know how powerful blogs are these days, like Pitchfork and
they can.
I think they still have
They're still around. They're just not as. They don't hit as hard as a Spotify algorithm does. Like, you know, that's way too accessible. Yeah,
or you know, Instagram or something. Somebody's finding something on there. And going, you know, I like this. I want to listen to it. Yeah. So for me, I had like a couple of really good friends who were just always on the money, like some artists that had, you know, come out or like were on the up, you know, maybe they just had an EP or something, and there was something about these people that they knew. They listened to it and they go, this is good. You know, there's something here. I really like it. Worthy enough for me to go and tell my friends about it.
It's like this like secret, this cool kid's secret that they like. It's like, I've got the rare Charizard. Like, everyone's gonna want this.
That's right. They got the drop on whatever's going. It's awesome. I think they're some of the coolest people that you can have and keep in your life. To find this music, to find this sort of culture, it's really, really, really cool. How do we do this on a local level? I guess is something we want to talk about today. You know, obviously there's bands all around the world, really, really great bands. And I've just been put onto so much good music from like really just a small group of friends. Even a lot of my friends who are amazing musicians, they're not really like super passionate about finding new music. They're kind of like, they have their favorites and that's it. And you know that person, and they've got their handful of their stuff that they love to listen to, and that's it. They're not like actively searching for anything new. They're not like trying to tell you or push anything onto you or share music. You know, it's really only a couple of my mates that do that. And I love it. I treasure it. You know, whenever they send me something, I'm always like, yep, I'm going to give this a go. And that's where I think it starts to, you know, become a thing. Being a fan. How do you do it? It's not easy.
No.
Yeah. Like, not everything you're going to love right away. Sometimes it takes like a few listens to a song or an album.
Imagine like the crate digging culture back in the day.
I know.
It was all album cover.
Yeah.
It was like, that looks sick. I bet you it sounds sick.
Put it on.
You know?
I bought the Matters Yahoo record based on his album cover.
Yeah.
I've never heard of who he was. never heard a song.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Matt is Yahoo. Like, what a great name.
Yeah.
He looks like a Jewish kind of rabbi guy.
Yeah.
Or something. And then I think back then you could go and listen to a little bit of it. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I love this. Bought the album. You know, have loved Matt is Yahoo.
A good record store will always let you play it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it was a risk. It was a risk.
Total risk. Yeah.
And for me, a lot of the time, like with growing up, it was my stepfather collected a lot of live music videos.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that and classic rock, because small town vibes.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, it was the jukebox at the pub.
Ah, yeah.
You know, kind of a similar thing. It was top 40 at the time. It was controlled by the major labels.
Yeah.
Not really a discoverability thing.
Yeah.
But in my teenage years, it became skateboarding movies and surf movies
That's a massive one.
video games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Like, we all love those
Tony Hawk's Pro
curations.
Skater. Yeah.
You know?
Underground, like, amazing curated playlists. So surf DVDs and videos as well.
Yeah.
That was a big way of finding. That's how I found like Parkway Drive. I think because he was a bodyboarder, and then his music, I guess, because he was, you know, able to be on these videos, I believe at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it became DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you would listen to the music that I guess was curated either by the skater or the surfer or by a part of their team, going like, we like this music, let's put it on there.
Mm-hmm.
Still, a lot of it's like odd,
especially
in skate. Like a lot of the music they put behind their videos like super odd, and then occasionally you get something that's just like, oh my god, what is that? I gotta find it. And they'd normally put it up, like bottom corner. Yeah,
it would flash the title and the artist would flash for you.
Yeah, so you kind of see that, and then it was like, okay, well, how do I find it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, find this small independent artist, like a lot of the time, like probably just selling CDs at their shows in America or in Europe, somewhere else, not in Australia. It's like hard to find, which I guess is kind of cool. So you go back and watch the video again. Those things I think is like not as passive. Like you're actively watching a video, you're actively buying it. You know, you're active in the act of being a fan or attempting to be a fan of music, consuming music. And I think it's like being a little lost. I think kids are a bit lost. You know, I'd say maybe even adults are still a little bit lost. They either like don't have these friends around them because you grow up and you move away or whatever it is. You don't have those conversations. You don't have time for those conversations. So I'd say like people kind of learning to become fans again will just fill your soul with goodness and fill your mind with happiness. And one big thing for me, which I actually really only noticed going on my honeymoon, which was kind of funny because it was 7 years ago or something. It was, about 7 years ago, I'd say. And this sort of just occurred to me, although like now looking back, I realize it has happened for a long time. Time travel. Like, I don't know if time travel is possible. Maybe it is. But anyway, so I'm on the honeymoon. We go to Hawaii. Typical, like, we're doing the honeymoon thing in Hawaii. And this guy was being played there on, like, radio. So, like, we're in tour buses or whatever we're doing. And so there's a radio playing generally. And this guy, whose name, Landon McNamara, is a surfer, actually. And this song was just always on. Always on. So we're just hearing it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a cool song. And, you know, you'd hear it again. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So eventually I looked it up. Anyway, now for years, like 7 years since my honeymoon, whenever I play that song by Landon McNamara, it just like takes me back.
Takes you there, right? Yeah.
So I always suggest to people when they go on a holiday or some sort of important part of their lives, find a song that you've never heard. You know, give it 1 or 2 listens and be like, yes, this is something I could listen to again. Like, prep it and listen to that song when you're away, you know, as many times, like say twice a day. Put it on in the morning, put it on at lunchtime, put it on in the evening, whatever kind of song it is for your whole trip. And then I guarantee you, whenever you turn that song on, you're going to be transported back to that place.
I've got a song like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I realized like after that, like after I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is this is cool. Like whenever I listen to the song, I'm always back there, and it's the same with like Steely Dan was another big one for me. Like I listened to it a lot when I was younger. Mum had the record Can't Buy a Thrill. And for whatever reason, I'd say like 10 years, maybe 12, 15 years almost, I didn't listen to one of those songs. Like maybe that Ricky Don't Lose That Number, if that had come on like a radio, you know, it's a popular song. But never gone and listened to Can't Buy a Thrill, and then found it again. You know, this is over a decade ago now, and I've listened to it ever since. But that whole album really marked a big time in my childhood. Then nothing for like 15 years, and then again when I was like mid-20s, I started listening to it a lot again.
Find that new appreciation, and
yeah, loved it. And then it really does take me back to, you know, this point where I met, you know, Corby, and I reconnected with my good friend Rowan, and we were listening to like Steely Dan, D'Angelo's Black Messiah,
banger.
Yeah, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Deja Vu, Jonathan Wilson's Gentle Spirit, and just really, and The Band was another sort of big record that we just had on rotate with these sort of records. Jonathan Wilson was a big one. Matt told me about that album. I'd say Jonathan Wilson is like, you really need to be a fan of his. Like, it's not something you're just going to stumble across.
Yeah.
It's great music. He's a producer, produced Father John Misty's Fear Fun. So great producer, plays guitar, like fills in for the Grateful Dead. There's like members that have died in that band. So he fills in for that. I believe he's played with like Pink Floyd and, you know, some pretty big names. Anyway, he's a great producer, great songwriter. Not a super accessible record just for anyone. I'd say like if you're like a real fan of music and, you know, old school rock and roll, like you're going to love him. But we all just became like totally influenced by this guy, massive fans, constantly listening to that first record, Gentle Spirit. And because we kind of found it, I guess like years or a year after it had come out, like Fanfare, his second album came out, and just totally fell in love with them. Massive fans, and that became really influential in, you know, our writing and, you know, just the times. But not, we weren't like afraid of being a fan of his.
You wore it on your sleeve, like you would. You'd preach it like a religion.
100%. You're just stoked to like show other musicians. There's kind of like two groups of like music for me always. There's like stuff I want to share with producers and engineers and musicians, and then stuff that you just share with like general friends. Because if I was to like most of my friends, hey, like check out Jonathan Wilson, they're probably going to be like, I don't get it. Like there's some really long songs in here. There's huge long intros. Like you got to be very patient to like the music. There's big guitar solos. It's like not for everyone. But for musicians, like generally they're going to love it. It's great playing, you know, it's everything that you wish you could do on an album, and he's done it, you know, multiple times. So I'd say like, you know, I'm not going to show my wife and be like, hey, check out Jonathan Wilson. She's going to probably be like, oh, like whatever.
It's like Flying Lotus for me.
100%.
I love what those guys do. And like, man, the production is hugely inspiring for me because it's so weird and so different and so unorthodox and kooky and kind of frightening. Yeah. But everyone, like, it's not something that everyone listens to, you know. It's a bit too far-fetched. Yeah. You know.
Well, was it I saw like an interview online with, I think it was Mos Def, you know, Yasin Bey.
Yeah.
And he was asked a question about Drake. What do you think about Drake? And you could see he was kind of stumped in it. He didn't want to, like, I guess, like, speak negatively on an artist. I know Mos Def, Yasin, seems like, you know, not that I know him, seems like a lovely person who, regardless of, you know, anything, probably doesn't want to say a bad word about somebody, even if they don't like them. But anyway, his comment was basically like, I wouldn't be surprised if I heard this in like Target or Kmart or something, you know, like this was his comment on Drake.
Yeah.
So I guess it was like his nice way of saying like, it's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is pop, hip hop.
Yeah.
You know,
this is catering to the mass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's fine. Like, that's awesome. Drake's great. Like,
exactly.
He caters to that whole audience. Like, his music is really fun. But you're right. Like, for me, there's so many other records. We just saw your rare record over there, Black Rock. Speaking of Mos Def, you know, very inspirational. Probably not. Like, even though you've got Mos Def and you've got Black Keys and you've got RZA and you've got all these like names on it, it's very much a record that's made for like fans of those people.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just like a mass consumed.
No.
Even though I think that record, if anyone could be, it is that one. Like it seems like it has hits on it.
But there's no music videos.
No.
Like it's its own artistic project.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's for the true fan.
Totally.
Yeah.
Of all these different people, you know, so you get to like, whether you're a fan of RZA, Mos Def, Black Keys, whatever it is, like you can come and appreciate this album. But yeah, it's not like a massive hit like Lonely Boy, you know, that's on there.
Yeah.
And even though it was like a similar time, I believe, as like when that music was coming out. So they're still getting this expression. I would say like, yeah, again, it's just first and foremost, how you become a fan of these people is where you find inspiration. And where we find ways of writing music, producing music, how music sounds, how melodies sound. And, you know, if you're wanting to, you know, put a song out there and have a shot at doing something, you know, if you listen to D'Angelo's, like a great example is D'Angelo, because you've got, say, Brown Sugar, you know, big hit album. If you were just to kind of go like, I want to go and make stuff like Brown Sugar, like, good luck. Like, it's really well done. It's pop music, beautiful albums, great songs. You're probably going to struggle to, you know, get something close to Brown Sugar. But if you go and listen to Black Messiah, it's a very, like, unattainable album for most people to try and make. You've got amazing players, really interesting vocal melodies, really odd lyrics. But if you pull, you know, inspiration from that, whether it be melodically, whether it be arrangement-wise, whether it be like philosophies of production, and apply that to your style, so you're just taking little pieces out of it that you like, and your music might not even be the same genre.
Yep.
You could be doing folk music, but then like take ideas of chords and melody ideas from D'Angelo and apply it to your thing. Suddenly it's your thing. Suddenly you've got this unique approach, and if people were like, oh, you're a folk musician, you sound like Bon Iver, I really like Bon Iver and I like you, but I guarantee they like Bon Iver better because he did it first. But if you've got these other influences, you know, sort of coming through that aren't associated with that, you know, there's just some correlation, you're going to sound like your own person, your own project, your own musician. And people get to then be a fan of you. They don't have to be like, oh, I like you just because I like Bon Iver. You know, I like you just because I like this other artist that sounds like you. But realistically, in their mind, if they're like picking up their phone and going to Spotify and going, all right, like who am I going to pick? Am I going to pick like the B grade version of Bon Iver? Or am I going to listen to the real deal?
So there's a transition there, right? Being a fan and then catering to a fan base.
Yep.
As an artist, as a producer, there's a few skills that need to be learnt and realized, and it comes with, you know, being a fan it's technically years of training, right?
For like, why are you a fan of Black Rock? Use that as an example.
Well, there's many aspects to that record that I absolutely love, you know?
Yeah.
It started with being a fan of those hip-hop artists and the Black Keys, right?
Yeah.
But then realizing it was a convergence of those two worlds, that's what really latched me onto it.
Yeah.
As well as the production and how they built all these organic style beats around it and guitar textures and just made this heavy-hitting album with all these amazing features, you know.
So first and foremost, you were a fan because you liked you liked the Black Keys, and you liked the Black Keys because you liked their music and you liked their look and their sound, right? Like pretty simple. You know, maybe I guess like we're going a bit too deep here, and like why producers are fans of records, and we need to talk about why an artist should be a fan of a record.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you become a fan of Black Keys? Like, how did you become a fan of Black Keys?
Oh,
did you hear a song? Did someone tell you about it?
That's a hard question because I can't remember how I stumbled upon them.
Yeah.
I think it was like maybe hearing them on Channel V or something like that.
What was their first song? Then?
Thick Freakiness was the album, right, I think. Yeah. Something like that. A two-piece rock band, like, you know, not many people, huge sound, not many people were doing that, and I gravitated towards that. I loved my psych rock and everything growing up, so hearing guys pull that sound nowadays, I was like, wow, you know. Can't remember exactly how I found them, but I knew straight away. I was like, yeah, these guys are cool.
Yeah, you felt something in your soul, in your heart.
Yeah, it was just pulling on my younger influence, and over the years I kind of kept consuming their catalog, and you know, found the Black Rock record, and that just exploded my whole interest into them, because I was like, these guys aren't limited to just a two-piece rock band. Like, they're willing to push boundaries of their own world. So, super inspiring in that sense. But, you know, as I got older and more skilled with my own artistic endeavors and produced records and those sorts of things, I became very critical in the listening of all of these records, and how I changed my perspective of just being a consumer and absorbing the sound for just the love of music, and started picking it to pieces on like that kick drum sounds so huge and roomy, and like I was focusing so much on every little detail of these records, you know, and I guess that came with my love of production and, you know, the monkey see, monkey do aspect of performing music and guitar tones and stuff. So I started really breaking everything I loved apart, trying to figure it out.
Well, I guess like an observation here is, and it should be where, you know, again, like talking about being a musician who's a fan, you were thinking about the kick drum sound. You know, you're thinking about the sound of the guitars. You're thinking about how it's all working together, how they can create such a big sound using two musicians. You know, I know some of those early records they recorded live, I think. That's what you were like honed in on. You weren't a fan because of like the way they look.
No, they're like, huge nerds.
They're huge nerds. Like, they're not particularly like the greatest looking guys, but I mean, they're super believable and
100%
lovely to look at. But you know, that wasn't like the first and foremost the thing. It was like, you know, these smaller details in like, oh, this is really cool, the way that it sounds, the way the songs are put together, the way they're written, the vocal tone, what microphones they're using, you know, and those are the things that artists need to be fans of. If you're an artist and you're like really concerned with like, I love them because of what they look like, how other people act when I tell them I listen to them, you're a fan for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I couldn't care if they like, you know, we were talking about Kings of Leon and their breakthrough record, and Sex on Fire, how it kind of destroyed a lot of love for the older stuff for people. And like, if those guys did something like that, like, so be it. I'd still consume these older records because it's not for that. Like, who cares? You know? Same with Kings of Leon, those older records, man. Like, there's just magic about them that I want to achieve, you know?
100%. I mean, even Kings of Leon put it in one of their songs, that lyric, girls are going to love the way I toss my hair and boys are going to hate the way I sing. The Day Old Blues, I think it is. And I thought, what a great lyric. And he's obviously observing this like through becoming, you know, more famous and more notable, like he's saying that, you know, I guess some girls are just honestly just attracted to, you know, 4 good-looking guys like playing rock and roll music. Awesome. I mean, there's always more to it. Plenty of good-looking people out there that make shit music. No one's going to the gigs. The music's got to be good. And yeah, boys are going to hate the way he sings. And I think it's more an observation on, like, they're probably just a bit pissed off that these girls are falling in love with them. And, you know, why aren't they falling in love with me? Like, I hate this guy. I hate this singer because, like, you know, the girl that I like is in love with them. And, yeah, anyway, it's sort of an interesting thing. And I think that side of, like, fandom is and should be reserved for, like, you know, general public. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to be a fan. Be a fan, whatever the hell you want to do, whatever the hell you want to like. I don't care. But I think as musicians, like, we really should be focusing on these other things. And if we're not, we're probably not in the right career. You're probably not in a position where you're capable of making records. And if you're still just like, oh, I'm a fan of music because I love the way they look, I love the way they dress, I love the way they market themselves and present themselves, like, maybe you should work in music marketing. Because if that's what you love and are obsessed with, that's the world you're going to succeed in.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're obsessed with the way that they're writing music and recording it and performing it, then that's when you should be in a position of writing, recording, and performing music. Steely Dan, another example of, like, an artist that didn't really perform or stopped performing. I believe in, like, 1974, they released Can't Buy a Thrill. And, you know, it couldn't be more of, like, what we would have considered a studio band, you know. So you've got two kind of geniuses, and then they just are pulling in people to create this record, different players for different parts. They've got this vision. They're trialing different people in different sections to make this, you know, quite an amazing album. But then didn't really perform it. I think they performed for like a year and then just stopped. It wasn't their passion. You know, it wasn't what they were interested in. I don't know, like, what those two guys went and did. Like, maybe they had produced some more Steely Dan stuff and potentially gone and worked on other people's albums. But they eventually did start touring again years later. Same with D'Angelo too. Like, after he did the Brown Sugar and then Voodoo, I believe it was like 15 years before he did Black Messiah. It's a really long time. I don't think he performed much. I know there was a lot of pressures. I know there's these rumors of, like, him, like, doing sit-ups backstage because he was just so concerned with the way that he looked.
Do you think the reason it took so long for him to come back to that album was because, like, when was this, when he came back and performed that? Like, was it in...
Black Messiah? Or,
yeah.
I think it was 15 years. Like, so, like, Brown Sugar and Voodoo were sort of 99 and 2000.
Yeah, and then so it was late 2000s, like close to 2015 and 2020 before he performed those albums again. So
yeah, like, he didn't really perform that I'm aware of.
Do you think that was because of streaming? Like a algorithmic number response that he was like, okay, there's fans of this shit that I should be performing it?
I don't know, like, because I know when he came back he was performing Black Messiah.
Yeah,
which is a very political album,
right?
Compared to, like, Brown Sugar and Voodoo, which is a very sexy album.
Yeah.
Talking about love and, you know, love and lust. Yeah, he had a whole different vibe. Like, you know, when he was younger, you see him, like, performing in jeans, no shirt on. Then he comes back and he's dressed in, like, a full suit. You know, I know, like, the bits and pieces I know about him is, like, I believe, like, his band was sort of semi-associated with Prince and that community.
Right.
So very good players. Obviously, you know, eventually used, like, Pino Palladino on bass, and you know, Pino obviously plays with some of the most amazing people in the world. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sure there's people who know a lot more about what D'Angelo did during that time. But again, like, another good example is Lauryn Hill. Yeah. Like, put out Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and then was asked to come and do this MTV performance, and then just did all this other stuff, and then kind of did nothing for years, and then comes out with sort of political.
See, I find that fascinating because, like, is it the fans that are reviving the love for these older records that haven't been performed? Like, they're like, why aren't you...
It'd have to be. Well, Lauren did come back and perform Miseducation. Yeah. Right? So she came back and did that years later, long time after. Also, like, another thing to look at here is that, like, the pressures of these major record labels and, like, the pressures of too many fans or something that's happening when you have this amazing, successful record, putting too much pressure on some of these artists, and they just go, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of people who suffer social anxiety, performance anxiety, like, just being in front of an audience is, like, daunting. And if you're, like, way to make money is to go and play shows because you've got this amazingly successful record, like, it could be a huge pressure, and you could just be like, this isn't for me. I'd say there'd be plenty of artists that have, been no one really, made something really, really amazing, and then kind of gone, I don't know if I want this life. I know that another story is the guy who wrote, I believe it was New Radicals, the song You Get What You Give or something. Big one-hit wonder from the 90s. And there was no follow-up from that one. But then if you go and, like, look at his Wikipedia or something, you'll see he just kind of became a songwriter and was writing for big 90s artists like Ronan Keating and, that kind of 90s sound that was going on. So, like, he probably just went like, ooh, this isn't for me. Like, yes, we've got this hit song, but, like, I'm not that guy. So I just want to go back to the studio and go and write music for other people who want to be that person, which is fair enough. I don't know if it's like, that's where fans sort of get out of control. I guess, like, I don't know if, like, we're here to kind of comment on this sort of super fandom. With, your artists like Taylor Swift, who have these, like, core groups of fans. Like, if you say a bad word about Taylor, they're all going to come and attack you online.
The Swift army.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like a big world that, I don't really understand. But, I was definitely, a passionate fan about music. But it was, as you were saying, from that perspective of, like, how did they make this? There's definitely some records where I just don't want to know. I want the magic to just stay.
Something that's quite funny from a fan perspective is Led Zeppelin's When the Levee Breaks. It's probably their most produced sound. Like, majority of their other stuff is very live performance and that sort of stuff, but, like, I went deep on the production of that song because it is amazing. That drum sound is something that a lot of engineers nerd out on. And they can't perform it live. Really? They hate performing it live.
Really?
Because it's never close to that original sound that people love so much. So they hate performing it.
Yeah, true.
The drum sound was... Bonham got a new Ludwig kit. It was dropped in the middle of the LaGrange Manor, where there's a huge stairwell that goes up like 3 stories, and Page was upstairs and Bonham was playing his new kit, and he's hearing this reverb like travel up the stairwell, and he's like, let's put mics up here and capture that. And that's the sound we love so much now, but in a live sense, it's just, like, so far beyond that it's like they don't enjoy performing that. So the fans are like, that's an expectation.
They want to hear that track.
They want to hear that track. And it just can't be delivered.
Yeah, I wonder, like, about that. Like, obviously artists, even... I've spoken to Matt about it, like, performing the song Brother, like, his big song, and he always, like, performs it. But there was definitely a point there where I think, maybe there was a point where he wasn't performing it. Maybe he thought he wanted to grow past that song and to, be more than just that song. Which I believe he was anyway. And I think as an artist, he was just struggling to figure out what that meant. He sort of, I believe, like, just ended up putting it back in the set because he didn't want to prove anything, I guess, to himself. Like, it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary to take the song out. sort of be like, oh, you don't need to hear this. Like, I'm a grumpy musician who just wants to like play all my new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going there to perform to your fans, and they're fans of you probably from the beginning, probably have like all their favorite songs. And, you know, it's kind of like almost your responsibility to play those songs for them.
Mm-hmm.
They may have never seen you live,
mm-hmm.
especially these days where ticket prices are expensive. You know, it's a lot of money to go and see an artist. It's a big deal for a person. You know, they got kids or whatever, they got babysitters, they're organizing time off, you know,
mm-hmm.
to go
mm-hmm.
and have a good time and spend a lot of money on seeing you. Like, I believe it's a responsibility of the artist to deliver to their fans
mm-hmm.
as best as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're promoting it and going like, hey, it's like all new songs,
yeah,
you know, that we're trying. So
yeah, don't ask for the older stuff.
Don't ask for the old hits.
Yeah.
This is like a whole new record. We're going to do it front to back or whatever it is. But we're even seeing it these days where artists are performing records.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
So George did their 20-year reunion tour, and it was playing Police Arena.
Yeah.
And like, that's a, you know, sold out show.
Well, Jet played at the station on the weekend. They just played that album.
Yeah.
Their big record.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Under Oath do their 2 albums years ago. Plenty of bands are just playing like the whole album because, like, you know, we've fallen in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, a dream show of mine is that Death Cab and Postal Service are touring, doing Transatlanticism, I think it is, and the Postal Service, the only Postal Service album, back to back,
mm-hmm.
supporting each other, like Ben Gibbard. Amazing, you know, and this tour, like, they're a part of some big tours over there, and the fans just love it. Like,
mm-hmm.
we love those records, and to be fair, like, I would be personally way more inclined, as much as I do love Death Cab,
mm-hmm.
there's definitely some newer records that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yep.
So if I was like, oh, it's $100 to go and see them, you know, I don't think they're coming to Australia, but if they were just like, we're going to play Transatlanticism, guaranteed I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
If they're like, if it's a risk and you might get like 1 or 2 tracks from each record, and they might play like half a set of all new music,
mm-hmm.
yeah, it could be. I'd be thinking twice.
It's a maybe, yeah.
It's a maybe. And I'm a fan of them too, and it's like, you know, so you've got this sort of other side to being a fan, which is like an artist, I guess, like delivering
mm-hmm.
to their fans
mm-hmm.
in what they want to see and what they want to consume, and being, I guess, like a little bit caring about that side of things.
Mm-hmm. So it does definitely it goes to knowing your fan base quite deeply, and in, you know, where they are in the world, you know, the avatar of who they are and how they're consuming you, especially. I know that, like, you know, if you're in a distribution platform, or I've been releasing a bit of music with United Masters.
Mm-hmm.
They've got great metrics. You know, I know most of them do now. Same with like Spotify for artists. Like, you're able to see. You were saying before, like, if you're able to have 20 artists in all these small towns all over the world, like, that's a good reason for you to keep hitting those smaller markets, you know, as an artist. Understanding who your fans are is just as important as those metrics. It is coming down to putting yourself in those shoes, and starting with your own nerdiness is literally the only way forward. Because if you're so influenced by specific people, specific ways of doing things, like, there's no reason you can't tap into those similar ways of doing things. Right?
I think it rubs off too, like, talking on a local level, rather than, you know, a global level. If we get like sort of stoked on our friends' music and you know, embrace it, go to shows, buy their stuff, you know, those sorts of things, just, you know, hopefully what should be considered quite small things to do from a local level of becoming a fan of your friends' music, and just building that stoke. I guarantee it's going to like rub off on everyone. So if you yourself are a musician and an artist and you're wanting to release music, like getting stoked about other people's music will come back to you like maybe tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're just excited and pumped for like, yeah, dude, like so stoked that you're putting out this record, so stoked that you're putting on a show, can't wait to come.
Mm-hmm.
Even just saying that in like a group of friends, you're hanging out, whatever. Like if they see somebody just kind of being stoked on doing something, they're probably going to be like, well, I'll come too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I come? Is it sold out?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, nah,
that sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes like one or two people to kind of build the stoke and get excited about stuff. And we can be a bit hard on ourselves, I think, in Australia, especially. There's always talk about this sort of tall poppy syndrome. And there was this little anecdote, I guess, of like surfers chatting about, not that I'm a surfer, but I thought this was the perfect example and definitely applies to the music industry, was they say like in America, like if they're out surfing and they're watching someone, they do an awesome trick and they come in, everyone's like, yeah, that was so dope, like so sick. And if it happens in Australia, and you've done some sick trick and you've seen your mates like sitting on the beach like watching, and you've come in and been like, hey, did you see that? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't see it. Like, sorry, I was looking the other way. And I feel like it's a bit like that in Australia sometimes with music. They're like, they don't want to get too excited.
Yeah.
They don't want to be enthusiastic.
Yeah, put you on the pedestal for no reason, I guess.
Yeah, I know, it sucks. There's definitely communities that don't do it. I found like, you know, the church community was like always like really stoked for each other. Like, I know like they share the common sort of ground of, I guess, like going to church, going to like a Christian school or something like that. So that I noticed like that their communities were like really stoked with each other. There wasn't kind of this competition. They were just happy that people were succeeding.
There's definitely cliques around everywhere, you know, wherever you go. Like,
yeah, people get jealous and like,
I think that's unavoidable. But
you know, it's if you're aware of it, and again, it's sort of about like how you build the community, how you build the stoke, how you build the fandom, like. Even just from a personal level, like you will be more open-minded with listening to music and consuming music and sort of being like, rather than like opening your phone and scrolling and finding something that you like, and being like jealous about it. Like, oh, fuck you. Like, I wish I was doing that. You'll be like, oh, that's actually so sick. Like, I'm so stoked. Like, how did they do that? Like, I want to know how they did it. I'd say that, you know, when it comes to kind of being a fan and like, analyzing music, there's things that we can control, like when it comes to like the sound of a kick drum, you can kind of like break it down, sort of be like, they were using this size kick drum, this sort of room, this kind of microphone, this kind of gear. The harder part of music is like the lyrics and maybe the melodies too. Like we can obviously analyze melody and figure out what notes they're singing, but where they're coming from with their lyrics, you know, that's a big part of it too. And I think when, you know, especially, I guess, I mean, almost all music, anything with any sort of emotion to it, if you hadn't kind of lived it or seen somebody live it, it's going to be really hard for you to sing about it. It's going to be pretty fake. So another big part of like being a fan is like, you know, going to the parties, listening to music, going to the shows, listening to the music, hanging out with friends, listening to music, and doing things together so that something happens. Like
rebuild that habit.
You hear a story from somebody, oh, my like girlfriend cheated on me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like, just writing it down. Like, what's the story? What happened here? Like, this is something real. This is like something that's worth writing a movie about. You know, somebody's like succeeded or something, or like, man, the other day, like I had the best day. Why was it the best day? Instead of being the person that's like, oh yeah, sick, I had a great day too. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to ask me about my day? It's like, why was your day the best day? Oh, it was the best day because like got up, sun was out. Yeah. Beach is good. Yeah. Waves are good. We went out, we had the best surf, like we come out, we like went, had a great coffee, ran into like these friends just randomly, had the best chats. Like turns out they were cooking up this feed later on. We went and had the feed, you know, got a bit drunk, got a bit silly, danced all night, bang. Like that's the type of like content you want to like put into a song.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I had the best day because like they remembered my coffee order. It's like, okay. Like,
small wins are always wins though.
It's still a win. Yeah, you could write a song about it, but I don't know. Like I feel like that too. Like when you're talking about artists like Bobby Arlou, and it's like these people just kind of like resonate sunshine, resonate this like happiness and good feelings. It's like it comes from this place, it comes from somewhere. Like I'm sure they have bad days.
Everyone exactly does. Right.
But like when it's worthy of talking about, you know, like these people kind of resonate these certain energies and stuff. Like it's not by accident. Like they're actively getting up and going like, I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to make people feel good, you know, or I'm going to have a shit day. I'm just going to stay home and be in my own little world. And that's fine too. And I'm going to write about that and just talk about being solitary for a minute because I don't want to see anybody. And but yeah, having those experiences, I think again, just comes from being a fan, being a fan of your friends, being a fan of their music, being able to like take on advice from them and them being like, listen to this, go and listen to it. Yeah.
Keep the friends that share music with you.
Keep them around.
Yes. Yeah. All right, we might leave that one there. That's
chime in, leave a comment. If you have a friend that is that person for you, tag them.
Send them this podcast.
Yeah.
Rainbows.